This week, we talk about our test results for the all-new Lexus LS 500. We discuss the phasing out of the federal tax credit for electric cars from Tesla and General Motors, and we answer audience questions. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Gabe Shenhar.
And I'm Ryan Pizlikowski.
So we're going to start today's show off talking about some electric car news, and shocker, it has to do with Tesla. That's some electric car humor. But
if you have to explain it,
it's not a good joke. But it also has to do with General Motors. So Tesla recently announced that they hit the 200,000 qualifying car mark for the $7,500 federal tax credit. But General Motors says they're probably going to hit that mark by the end of this year. And what that means is there will be a phase-out process of those federal tax credits. And Gabe, as our ranking electric car expert, was hoping you could explain to the good people a little bit about that federal tax credit and also how this phase-out process occurs, because it's a little complicated.
It is. And so you get a federal tax credit of $7,500 on any pure EV and some plug-in hybrids. And that's going to start phasing out. So by the end of this calendar year, if you didn't take delivery of the car, it's going to get reduced by half. Then after another 6 months, I think, it gets reduced by another half, and eventually it goes away completely. So also it's important to note that if you lease the car, and a lot of EV buyers tend to lease the cars, you don't get that tax credit. You're eligible if you are the first original owner of the car.
Right. So now, but some states do offer tax incentives, and those still will take effect.
Right.
But what does this mean for, like, let's talk about, Ryan, let's talk about the big thing always is the Model 3. And, you still can't buy that, $35,000 Model 3 yet.
The elusive.
They're saying that maybe 6 to 9 months down the road you will be able to. And the thought was, for those people, they probably thought, okay, I'm going to buy this $35,000 car and have this maybe $7,500 tax credit.
Right.
But because it's not even for sale yet, it's possible they might miss out on that completely.
Yeah, they're standing in line expecting to get this $7,500 tax credit. They've factored that into the price. I don't care what electric car you're buying at what price range. $7,500 is a lot of money, and that's really enticing. You know, so that's a bummer if you're waiting in line for one of these cars that you think you're going to get for whatever you factored in for a price of the $7,500 knocked off, and now you might not get it, or you'll get half of that. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Now
I would say that if you're buying a Tesla, you probably don't care about that because you're drawn to the brand, to the aura of it, to the newness of it, to the coolness of it, and you wouldn't care if it has a gas-guzzling V8. So you buy a Tesla.
Right.
But if you're someone who really goes through every number and makes the business case for driving an electric car and benefiting from low running costs, then you're going to think about it.
Right. But even someone buying a Bolt, they're looking at a Bolt because it's affordable. It's a great little car. That $7,500 that's a good chunk off of that.
Well, yeah, and so the vehicles that this will affect, like we said, it's going to happen to Tesla first and General Motors later, but it would affect the Model S, the Model 3, the Model X, the Chevrolet Bolt, the Chevrolet Volt, and the Cadillac CT6 plug-in hybrid.
Right.
There may be some changes made to this tax incentive program. I know General Motors, for one, is pushing, for changes for it to be pushed out further. And then Consumers Union, the advocacy division of Consumer Reports, thinks that the tax incentive should be directed more toward middle-class buyers, so that the people who maybe are having more troubles affording an electric vehicle, if it was directed more toward them, maybe more people would buy electric cars. If you want to learn more about this, we have a whole story written up on consumerreports.org, so go check that out for even more in-depth information. So let's move on to At the Track, always my favorite part of the show. And this week we're going to deal with the all-new Lexus LS 500. The LS has been, an excellent ultra-luxury sedan for years, usually at the top or near the top of our rankings, and now they have an all-new version It's lower, it's more sleekly styled, has an all-new drivetrain. Ryan, you're integral in our testing program. You spend a lot of time driving it on the road. You spend a lot of time driving it on the track. What are your overall first impressions of the new LS?
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with it. This is a small competitive group, ultra luxury cars. There's not a lot of them, and like you said, the LS was at the top, and it's not what it was. It doesn't ride like it used to, I don't think.
Too stiff?
Yeah, it's
too
stiff.
Harsh riding?
Yeah, it does have the styling. You know, they made it look a little more youthful, I would say. But it's just not as silky as it used to be. I mean, they had that V8 that was so, had so much power and it was so smooth. This V6 it's powerful. I mean, it goes, but it doesn't have that the same refinement, and it's not the car that I remember. It's a little upsetting.
Yeah, so they have this new twin turbo V6 with 416 horsepower, 10-speed automatic transmission, but it's replacing that silky smooth V8. And Gabe, what did you think about the drivetrain?
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, the car used to be the epitome of smoothness and stress-free motoring. And even though on paper, this drivetrain and against the clock, it accelerates well, but in everyday driving, you just don't get that same power delivery, that same lush, linear, effortless kind of V8 that was so smooth, so quiet. And also it was pretty fuel efficient for what it was. So I think, I mean, if I'm trying to get into Lexus' head about this car here, they probably thought, and this is consistent with Toyota's move towards making more emotional cars, more stylish, nimbler kind of cars that car magazines like. And so the Lexus LS fell into this trap as well. And I think they botched up the car.
I gotta say, as far as the drivetrain goes, I mean, by the numbers, it's pretty quick, but around town, when you get into the throttle slightly, it seems like nothing's there for a little bit. You have to really punch the gas for it to go anywhere, and then it doesn't sound that great up high. It's kind of loud, whereas the old one sounded, it was like a good kind of mellow loud. This is more of just a little bit obnoxious loud, and it's just not that silky smooth, refined drivetrain. The automatic works well, but the engine itself, it just doesn't have that refined feel that the car used to have.
There's never any sense of urgency, but that's not even telling the whole story. I mean, the controls.
I knew you were going to go to the infotainment
They
system.
went crazy with the controls. I mean, digging into the screen, touchpad for seat heaters and steering wheel heater, even adjusting the head restraints. That is ridiculous.
Well, not just that you have to use the touchpad, but it's so finicky, and I'm constantly overshooting things all the time, and it's like, I mean, I don't understand why they did that. If that is supposed to, I mean, you're a young buck. Are they trying to appeal to young guys like you with this like high-tech system, or what are they trying to do?
I don't have any more skills than the average person. I don't care what age you are. That thing is a nightmare. I mean, you constantly, it's just distracting. You can't find things. Well, you can find them, but you can't get to them.
Right.
And like to seat heaters or headrest in a menu. I mean, like
that's crazy.
Two layers deep into a menu. That's just unacceptable to me.
And not only that, so they made the car sleeker and lower. So the roof line's lower.
Yeah.
And now you don't even really fit in the back seat, right?
No, I have to recline it, which it does recline. I mean, there's got the fancy rear seats that do all sorts of tricks. But I can't sit in the full upright position comfortably. My head's against the ceiling. I almost kick it to the side a little bit. In a car like that, $100,000 car, I mean, I should fit back there. I'm not a monster. I'm 6'2", but I should fit back there.
Yeah, and so competitors, we're talking Audi A8, BMW 7 Series, Mercedes S-Class, and the Genesis G90, which almost seems like that's kind of like what the Lexus LS used to be.
Yeah, anyone coming out of an older Lexus LS is going to be totally happy with a Genesis G90, which is $30,000 less expensive.
That's and it does everything that an ultra luxury sedan should do.
Exactly. I mean, it's super comfortable, it's quiet, it's quick and effortless. Controls are easy and intuitive. You can be chauffeured in this car and sit in the back seat like a king.
Are you making offers? Is that what you're saying?
Anyway,
so it seems like a bit of a misstep for Lexus is what you're saying.
It does, completely.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it ends up doing in the market.
One final point, the car is heavier than all of its competitors. It's 300 pounds heavier than the closest competitor, and that's just crazy. I mean, that it hurts the car in terms of handling. It's too wide, too long to be really nimble, and that's probably one of the reasons why it doesn't feel like it has that sense of urgency.
In an era when automakers are going lighter, Lexus went heavier. We're going to have our full road test results up soon on cr.org, so make sure you check that out. So now we're going to move on to audience questions. And folks, remember, you can send your questions, your comments, 30-second video clips to talkingcars@icloud.com. We love your feedback. Please keep sending it in, good and bad. I prefer good. Okay, first question. With the recent trend of auto stop-start features on many vehicles these days, I was wondering what the reliability is on the starters on these models. It wasn't expensive to replace starters back in the 70s, but I can't imagine what it would cost with today's cars. Ryan, I'm going to throw this to you. These are systems that, you come to a stoplight, they turn the car off, then you get going again, immediately turns it on, and sometimes when you're in traffic, it's turning it on and off quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is this a reliability issue? Maybe not now, but maybe 10, 15 years down the road?
So the short answer, I think, is no. I did a little research. This is a great question because I was always curious myself what they're doing here. But like anything in the automotive field, they are constantly evolving and solving problems. So now we have a starter that has to start more often, and way more often than a traditional starter. So they've designed for this. The starters they might look the same, and they're in similar positions, but they're using more robust designs. The brushes and the motors are coated differently. They're using, instead of oil impregnated bushings, they're using needle bearings. Just little things like that. It's some of these, there's different designs. Some of these starters are permanently engaged. A traditional starter has to when you go to start your car, it shoots out, the pinion gear shoots out and meshes with the...
We're getting really technical here,
I'm sorry.
Pay attention.
Shoots out and meshes with the flywheel and then spins the flywheel, starts the car. But if you can eliminate that little process of it actually engaging into the flywheel, that's less wear and tear. So they're making some of these starters that are permanently engaged. There's a lot of, maybe there's more moving parts or less moving parts. Like anything, you're gonna have issues. I mean, your traditional starters had issues.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be any worse, though. I think they are designing for this, and
we'll see. That's the long story. The short story is probably it's going to be okay. I mean, these engineers think these things through and test these, Gabe. Would you say that you doubt there's going to be serious issues, down the road?
I doubt it, and we'll see, of course, in our annual survey of reliability if that's an issue. And one other thing is that the battery is also designed specifically to go with that stop-start system. So you can't just replace any generic battery.
Right.
So that might be an added cost in terms of maintenance, long-term maintenance when you have to...
That's a very good point, because when you come to a stop, now everything that was running off a serpentine belt, which is off the engine, is running on electric motors, which comes from the battery. So you're using a bigger battery, a more expensive battery, potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is all in an effort to be more efficient and green.
All right, good stuff, guys. Let's get to our next question. When it came time to trade in my 2011 Acura TSX Sport Wagon, I turned to Consumer Reports for ratings. That's nice to hear. I ended up buying a Mercedes-Benz GLC 300, which at the time was the top-rated luxury compact SUV with a score of 72, I believe. You haven't retested it, but now the score has dropped to 54. What gives? Gabe, I'm going to throw you under the bus here and explain a little bit about how our overall scores change. They fluctuate on a yearly basis. Could you give a little insight on that? And also maybe as to, what the key factor was with this Mercedes and why the score went down.
Throwing me under the Mercedes.
That's what I'm doing.
Anyway, what gave is reliability. So when initially we first tested it, it's tested out very well in terms of road test. It's a nice car. It drives really nicely. It's very enjoyable. Initially, reliability was much better than average, and that was based on short exposure. A year later, reliability became less than average. So that got incorporated into the score. We have quite a bit of data that shows that there have been some problems with the brakes, squealing and whatnot, and complete brake job replacements and whatnot. So that, and it's important to note that what makes up our overall score, it has 4 ingredients. It's the road test score, it's reliability, it's owner satisfaction, and it's safety. So it's a moving target. So, and very soon, this fall, we'll get the results of the 2018 annual survey, and those results will get incorporated. So that 54 might jump up to somewhere, who knows?
Right, and it's important to remind people as we try to that this is our data, but we didn't come up with the data. It comes from our annual survey, which we reach out to our members, and they give us this information on how the reliability has been with their cars, and that's where these scores come from. And it's true that the person's right. It did top our ratings at one point.
Right, but as like Gabe was saying, it's important to note that the reliability data is live, so it actually it can change. It can even go up. It could have gone the other way.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't just go down. Sometimes it goes up too. So.
Right.
All right, that's a good question. Let's move on to the next one. This one's pretty interesting too. This person says, do all-wheel drive / four-wheel drive systems work effectively? I've seen blog posts about all-wheel drive compact SUVs having such a weak power transfer that they're almost worthless. I also saw a video simulating ice on a hill with a Subaru and a VW 4Motion, the only cars capable of climbing up it. Could CR add a section to its reviews of all-wheel drive cars that rates how effective each system is? All right, now we're going to get a little technical on some of this stuff, so brace yourselves. Ryan, I'm going to throw this to you because you actually do a lot of snow testing as part of our tire testing program.
Right.
So, how different are the all-wheel drive systems between all these different manufacturers?
So, you mentioned you watched the video, and I'm not saying the video is wrong. I don't know what they did, but I don't believe anything unless I do it myself. I've become like that working here.
Sure.
But generally speaking, we haven't seen the all-wheel drive systems be any of them be completely terrible or not work. They all work fairly well for most conditions, most drivers. Are they created equally? No. I mean, some are better than others. There's no doubt. But to the point of testing these things, it's difficult. When we do our snow traction testing in the winter months for tires, we have to use this entire facility. We have to prepare the surface. The stars have to align. It's got to be a cold night, a night, no sunlight, packed snow, a little bit loose on top. It's a recipe that has to be just so. Otherwise, you can't do it. You can't repeat it. And we have to be fair. Everybody's got to go through the same conditions. And I mean, maybe we could do that. I don't know. I mean, maybe Gabe has an idea, but
do you see us implementing some type of test for all-wheel drive cars down the road?
So the question is, to what end? I mean, sure, there are differences between those systems. I mean, there are different couplings and clutches and different suppliers of these systems. And so, as Ryan said, for most typical conditions, basically snow driving, you're going to be okay. That's not to say that there aren't some extreme situations where one system or another are going to shine and be better. But exactly, I mean, the meaning of this is even if you're going to have some, let's say, front wheel spin,
right,
that's not necessarily a bad thing because it gives you some cues as to the condition of the road.
Slippery,
and you might take note, hey, it's really slippery here.
Mm-hmm.
So
I need to be a little more careful.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. So I think all of these systems in most of these cars are good for most people for the most typical conditions.
Okay, fair enough. So probably won't be doing a test down the road. Next question and final question is, why does every car manufacturer seem to implement a strange shifter? At first, I thought they were to save room on the center console. However, some systems like Honda's seem to take up a lot of room. So what is the benefit, if any? And this is a pretty good question. And Gabe, I'm going to throw this to you. This person's talking about the electronic shifters.
Throwing me under a shifter now.
I'm throwing you under the shifter if that's possible. So tell us a little bit about why we've gone from, I guess, the column shifter, and then to the console shifter, and now it seems like we're going away from them. We're going to like buttons and dials. What's going on?
So the benefits are that it's low effort, and if you're arthritic or something, then it's much easier to engage reverse drive. park, whatnot, and everything. These are by wire, so you can program a lot of. I mean, not you, but the manufacturer.
Not me.
Can or me. The manufacturers can program a lot of fail-safe. Let's say you shut the engine off and drive, and the car can go automatically into park. But true. I mean, these are confusing. Some of them are very confusing. Most people have gotten used to this motion of pushing the shifter forward, and you're in park, and in some of them you're in reverse, and that's going to take some getting used to.
There is some learning curves with these. I mean, you're going to figure it out if you own the car. I mean,
But some of them are more egregious than others, right?
Absolutely. So like the Chrysler or the Land Rover has a dial.
Yep.
Now the dial, I can not look at the dial and turn it, and I know exactly where I'm going. It's pretty intuitive.
2 clicks, reverse drive.
Exactly.
Ram trucks have that as well.
Yeah, but the Lincoln Navigator has these piano keys that are way up on the dash. You got to look at it. I don't care. I mean, you just got to. You're not going to not do that.
Right.
But with memory, I mean, and if you can, I mean, I don't know.
Well, and then there's the GMC Terrain that's also really
more
bad
buttons.
with these really tiny
right.
little buttons. And then there's the Volvo XC40, which has this weird. It has what we call a monostable lever, but you have to do this 2-tap system,
Yeah, you have to repeat 2 motions, and I gave the car, my wife saw the car and said, wow, it's such a cute Volvo, and I put her in it, and I didn't say a word.
You're evil.
You are so mean.
That's a real test, right? She starts the car, and she's sitting there, she gets in gear, revs in neutral, nothing happens, and then she figures it out, and she looks at me. Twice? You've got to be kidding. There was actually more intensity to the way she said it. I'll spare you.
Imagine. It's a family show, Gabe.
Yes. So anyway, but that is really annoying, and there's no way you can do it quickly. Reverse drive in successive motions, and like in parking maneuvers. Same goes to the Honda. You can't do it quickly. You have to always look at it. You have to decipher where you're in, and sometimes I hit reverse because you have to dig into it, and I get the emergency brake instead.
Yeah. So I think
there's some benefits.
Newfangled isn't always better.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you want to learn more about the cars we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes below. Don't forget to send those questions and comments to TalkingCars@icloud.com, and we'll see you next week.